It's getting cold in the mornings now.
Yeah.
I can't say that I relate, but, good luck with that.
I was headed out to work this morning, and I was a little on the late side, so I was like, I'm not going to run all the way back into my room, even though it's cold out, and I know I'm going to regret that decision to not get that later, and I regretted that decision later.
It was like not even 50 degrees when I left for work this morning.
Fortunately, I was mostly in the plane, but still, I'm going to remember a jacket tomorrow for sure.
Yeah.
The only reason I wore a jacket today is because it was raining, and I didn't want to get wet.
Wet and cold is a bad feeling.
Yes. It wasn't particularly cold. I mean, the air temperature here is still in like the 60s. But
Right. But you add some wind to that wetness, and it's just not fun. Like
No,
Monday. Monday was not fun, but fortunately they put us out of our misery in a matter of speaking rather quickly. So
Because you were like out there taking pictures for the school on like the golf course or something?
Yeah, they had at Moorhead Country Club. They had a it was like a fundraiser for the athletic programs, like golf tournament that they have every year. And they were like, "We're gonna do this rain or shine." I was driving to work. I'm like, "It's
gonna
looking
be
more
rain,
like
isn't
rain than shine." The way it's looking, I don't know. So we got like 2 hours in, and at first they're like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna clear up," and then I looked at the radar. I'm like, "It's not." But we got about 2 hours in, and I was like preparing myself for having to spend the remaining 4 hours in the rain and the cold, because it was like, I don't know, it'd take maybe 20 minutes. There's like 18 teams, and I had to grab their group photo at one of the hole tees for the golf hole. We had like a banner with like sponsors on it and the name of the event. I was supposed to say group photos as they went through. Went through about like 6 because there was like 20-minute, half-hour pauses in between each. I just had an umbrella and a towel to protect the camera, and I just sort of stood beneath a tree, which helped somewhat. But yeah, it kind of sucked. But they called it off, and then they moved up the barbecue dinner that they were going to have at the end of it to when they called people back in. So that was nice. People still got food. So it wasn't like a total loss.
So technical question. When you take a picture of somebody up by the start of the golf course, do you have them T-pose? For the camera, that is.
Lovely.
I derailed that.
Yeah.
And I apologize that I'm proud
Well, that
of
was
that.
mostly
Just
done with
don't
my
really
story.
apologize.
I apologize for the fact that I'm proud of it.
Yeah. I was mostly done with my story. So
Okay,
other than
good.
that, at work, it's the homecoming week at the high school. So there's lots of events like to take pictures of. Today we had a Eucharistic procession around the school. So
Nice.
you don't see that a lot. Father Metzger, the principal, like poked his head in my office. He's like, "Did you get a lot of pictures?" Like he was super excited about it. Like, "Oh, that was so awesome! That was so awesome!" So, Father is first. I don't think they'd done a Eucharistic procession, at least not for homecoming. So that was kind of a cool deal. Got some cool photos. It was like contrasted with Monday. The rest of the week has been like picture perfect fall days, like mid 70s, upper 60s. Sunny, slight breeze. So, yeah, it's been a pretty cool week so far. How are things down in Indiana?
Things down in Indiana are okay. It's been kind of rainy this week. A little dark, a little cloudy, a little overcast, and some rain here and there.
Yeah.
Today has only been the only day where it's like particularly heavily raining, but it has been a little grim.
I see.
Yeah.
For the last week or so.
I think it was like junior year. There was like almost the entire month of October was just rainy, like the whole time. It was either like overcast or like wet. So
that's what winter is like here.
Right.
It's overcast. It's not quite cold enough for there to be snow. So all of the precipitation that would come as part of a snow ends up coming down as rain. So, you know, you don't make discernment decisions in February anywhere, but especially not here, because it's just dark and depressing and rainy all the time.
Yeah.
So, in particular, here is not a place where you do that.
Makes sense. Shoot. I had a thought. Now it's gone. Oh, well.
Good.
How many episodes
Have I
do
said
you
that?
actually say that?
Quite a few. Somebody...
Probably, I wager most of them.
Like,
Yeah.
over half of them at least.
Yeah. Or I'll have a thought, and then somebody will say something interesting, and I'll start thinking about that. I was like, crap, wait.
And then you'll
was
say,
relevant.
I had a thought,
It's gone now.
and now it's gone. See, when we have a wiki, we'll have to have a page dedicated to how many times you said that.
Yeah, more like if we have a wiki.
Right.
Yeah.
Because having a wiki involves somebody putting together a wiki.
Somebody
having
caring
And we
about
have
the
to have
details of what...
more than 2 listeners to
Yeah, the sample
someone willing
size
to
of
put
the
together a
fans
wiki.
has to be such that there's at least one of them who is dedicated enough, that's the word I'll use, to make a wiki about different facts about our podcast.
Who knows, maybe...
if we ever get to that point, more power to you. I might even pay you.
Or if
to
one of us
you do
gets
that.
bored enough.
I have way too much stuff to do
Yeah.
to ever get so bored
Yeah.
that I would
Same
resort to making
at
a
this
wiki about this
stage.
podcast.
At this point, yeah. I get bored, but not from a lack of things to do these days.
Bored more as I need a break from all the things I need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, oh, can I just sit and do things that I want for a little bit? That's why weekends are so nice.
Maybe once, maybe please.
Yeah. That's why weekends are so nice. Except for this weekend, because I have to work on Saturday for a thing. It only happens like twice a year, but every time it happens, I'm just like, ugh.
Whereas I have a long weekend this weekend.
Nice.
Oh.
So, as after Mass on Thursday, which is at noon, I am free until Monday.
Very cool.
So, my couple of my friends and I are going to play some Civ 6. Make a day out of it.
Nice.
So that should be fun.
Very neat. I've got a brother who turns 13 this week, so I'm going to be
Ugh.
headed home. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
You met him when he was like, what, 5?
Not even.
Not even?
Yeah, like maybe 4. 3 or 4.
Jeez.
Yeah.
How time it do
Tempus
fly.
fugit, as they say.
Yep.
And-
I suppose speaking of people and milestones, we had my niece's baptism on Sunday. That was pretty nice.
Very nice.
Hung out with
He's no
the
longer a heathen?
family. What's that?
She's no longer a heathen.
Correct. She is now a fully fledged member
Now a
of
child
Christ
of God.
Church. But yeah, she was like super well behaved all day. Like not like, when you're 2 months old you can be misbehaved, but she wasn't grumpy. She was awake most of the time and kind of...
She didn't totally freak out when she got dunked?
No. Well, I think it caught her the perfect
Well,
moment.
you don't have to get dunked.
No.
You probably just get water poured on your head.
Right.
You get waterboarded.
She was at that sweet spot for a baby her age where she woke up from a nap and she was fed. And so she was just super chipper about the whole baptism thing. So that was kind of cool.
Neat.
But yeah, she was just generally like that all day. Napped a couple more times, but Adam's wife's family was there. Our family was there. We had like a get together. Basically spent the
Did
whole
my brother show
afternoon.
up?
Yep.
Very cool.
He and Michelle were there. Michelle was holding both of my nieces at the same time for a while. One in utero, but that's neither here nor there.
No, it's definitely there.
It's definitely there.
It's definitely not here anyway.
Yeah, not yet. But yeah, that'll be cool. The other thing I did over the weekend is I went to help my dad empty out our garage because they're trying to get it insulated and drywalled off and stuff so we can use it as like a heated garage. And there were a lot of just random crap in the rafters that we had to pull out of there. And we did a lot of work, and by the time I left on Saturday evening, it was still like a lot to go, but I was surprised I didn't find any dead animals up there, which I was like half expecting. Although when I did take my old potato gun down from the from the rafters, as I tipped it barrel down, a bunch of acorns and crap fell out of the thing. So some chipmunk
So
or
it was a
squirrel or
squirrel
something.
nester, yeah.
Yeah, got in there.
Should have just lit it up and fired it.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I had all this stuff for it.
Well, if you don't have any like a piece of padding in the back there, and it's
Yeah.
not airtight, and the stuff isn't going to fly properly if you
Right,
don't have
right.
something,
Yeah.
some wadding in there.
Yeah, it was like, all in the chamber and stuff. I was like, you know what? I wasn't using this thing for the past 5 years, so more power to you, squirrel. Or whatever you were. At least it wasn't a mouse. That would have been just really annoying. Mice are kind of the worst. But anyway, that's my storied recent past.
I'll tell you what, this weekend when I go home, I'm barely going to recognize the house.
True, yeah, it's been
they've
torn
been-
apart again.
They've been tearing that apart because, it's an old house. It was
Mhm.
built in like the 60s or something and hasn't really been updated since. And so
Except
when
for
we
the kitchen
first moved
remodel you
in, we
guys
did a
did.
bunch of remodeling. We redid the kitchen, redid the dining room, added a whole new bathroom and stuff. But Dad's always kind of had this grand picture vision of the house where he moves the staircase and there's so much more room upstairs.
Mhm.
It's just that after a while he's like, yeah, people are moving out, might as well slow down, we'll button it up where it is now and it'll be okay. And then we adopted a newborn and it was like, oh well,
We need space again.
this guy's got to live here for at least 18 years.
Yep.
Let's actually finish the house. And so now they're getting serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
They redid a whole bunch of rooms upstairs. And actually, they didn't redo them. They built a new garage, and they have rooms on top of that.
Yep. Put
And so
bonus
that's the
rooms
new
up.
rooms that people have moved into, so they could gut every other room in the upstairs and turn it into a large living space. And I think they're currently either prepping for or in the process of moving the staircase. I've just been getting pictures texted to the family group text like once every couple days where Mom's like, hey, this is the update. Our living room is the garage now.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see in person how much change it is and how my
you've seen
siblings
your-
have a space now.
You've seen your family a few times over the last couple of months, but it's all been
Yeah.
like at things,
Yeah.
not at the house per se.
Well, I went to the house a couple weeks ago. Well,
Okay.
I hung out there for a bit when I picked up siblings to go for Cousins Weekend, if you
Yep.
recall us talking about that from a previous episode.
Probably. If you didn't,
I
Go
did.
listen
I
to it.
mentioned
no.
Megan by name.
If you didn't hear that, go listen to it or whatever.
We'll
Nobody-
tell you where you can. Where
riveting
can they
stuff.
find it?
Yeah, they can find it on Spotify, Stitcher, yeah. No.
I mean, if they're listening to
And
us
now on Facebook podcast.
Oh yeah.
That's
yeah.
a new thing.
I'm like slightly like first like I was given pause when I noticed how it automatically populates those with the descriptions, which were sort of if you
That's
weren't paying
part
attention.
of the RSS feed.
True. I'm
now you got to think about the script. No.
no, I'm just gonna go for it.
Okay.
Nobody reads them anyway.
No,
And
exactly.
anyone who does is okay enough with us to, excuse the top of James's head, whatever. They
And
end
we're
up
talking
being.
the very top of James's head, like instantly. Once that layer's peeled back, what's the next layer underneath
Just
that?
stream of consciousness.
Stream of consciousness, James, on full display here, ladies and gentlemen.
Sometimes they're a little more premeditated.
True, yeah.
Sometimes.
Depends on how inspired I'm feeling that day.
Mm-hmm.
I think isn't that like a writing method where it's like free writing? You just start writing stuff and see what happens. It's like sort of a brainstorming technique. That's just how I write the descriptions some days. It's like I'm not even trying. There's no end point in mind. I'm just bleh.
The end point is the character limit.
Yes, pretty much. Speaking of character limits, we're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan,
And I'm Riley.
and you're limited to 3 characters hosting the podcast.
Yep. Today.
For on the regular.
On the regular.
What are we talking about
On the
today,
reg.
Riley? What?
We are getting gregariously gaming. I don't know that that's the right way to do that, but we're doing a gregarious games about the Dishonored series. So, Dishonored.
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 I take it that at some point someone's reputation is impugned.
That is certainly something that is a premier feature of the first game.
And has
And
repercussions in the sequels, I imagine.
And has repercussions in the sequels. There is a certain degree to which it applies to the second game as well.
Uh-huh. And how many are there?
There are 2 and a
They're working on a third
standalone side story thing.
Okay.
That they aren't working. Well, they may be, but
you never know.
They sort of wrapped up the arc of the existing characters, and they stated that if we ever make another one of these, it's not going to be with these within the same sort of time span that the first 2 occurred.
Sure, you do a time skip with different characters or something like that.
Well, yeah.
So give us a little bit of background on the Dishonored games. What manner of games? When do they come out?
Dishonored is... It has 2 really unique play styles to it, which is one of the more interesting things about it. It's either a shoot and loot, survival, scarcity game a la Bioshock, or a stealth puzzle platformer, depending on how you desire to play it. So there is you're given the option to indiscriminately kill everyone that you like, or to choose more non-lethal means of pursuing your goals.
They lead to different story beats and endings or something, or
mostly different endings. There's really not much impact in terms of the, moment-to-moment story.
It's just kind of getting how you decide to get from point A to point B.
Yep, and it affects the endings.
How much?
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, then, what exactly goes down? How does it start?
Dishonored is a game developed by Arcane Studios, which is one of Bethesda's pet studios. So it's produced by Bethesda. So it has that kind of Bethesda vibe to it. I use the Void engine, which is one of their proprietary
dialogue
things.
trees and things like that.
Not so much, actually. But it definitely has that first-person, high production quality, aspect that you see in a lot of Bethesda's work.
So these are the guys that also made Fallout and Skyrim and stuff?
No. They did... Arcane is a studio that
Bethesda
Bethesda publishes for,
yes.
And consults with and all that.
Sure.
They aren't they aren't Bethesda game studios.
Sure.
But they're produced by. Cool.
Yeah, okay.
They are produced by Bethesda. Yeah, so Dishonored 1 is set in the steampunk ? I don't know really quite the designation for it. It's kind of steampunk, it's kind of not. It's more like sea punk, because everything is powered by whale oil in this world. You can somehow suck electricity out of
the Americans are like
whale oil.
Did somebody say oil? And the Japanese are like, did someone say whale?
Somebody say whale. Yes, in the sort of England-esque city of Dunwall. Well, the nation of Dunwall, really. It's quite London-esque in its appearance, and it's set in the middle of a plague.
It's London punk.
London punk. And we follow the protagonist, Corvo Watano. He's a silent protagonist.
Okay.
As you are. He's sort of meant to project yourself onto him. Who's the bodyguard of the Empress of the Isles. That is the British Empire.
Definitely not Queen Victoria.
Definitely not. And the plot of the game kicks off by the Empress being assassinated, her daughter Emily abducted, and Corvo being framed for the whole thing.
Oh no, he's been dishonored.
He's been dishonored.
Roll credits.
So the assassins take over and install the Lord Regent as their, who's their client, as the new leader of the country.
And totally not behind the whole thing.
No, they come out and say that he's behind the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're not trying to hide that. They're just
we're not hiding the ball here.
Willing to demonstrate by a show of force that they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
So Corvo escapes very narrowly and dashingly, and is contacted by the Loyalists, a group of people who want to see the Caldwin line restored to the throne.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, okay, seems like my only option at this point is I'm being systematically hunted down by the new regime. So he signs up with them, and as he goes to sleep that night, he has a dream vision thing of the Outsider, who is a man who resides within the void.
Outsider?
The Outsider. Yes. I thought we weren't doing that one anymore.
We aren't? Okay, sorry.
For the sake of half of our audience.
Okay, I apologize.
Well, they didn't send
Who's
it to the
annoyed by the
email,
bit?
so tough luck.
Sorry, Faith. We're gonna try. We'll try our best. No promises.
Old habits.
And the Outsider gives Corvo his mark, which grants him supernatural powers. It places a mark on the top of his hand, so it's difficult to hide the fact.
Which allows him to use magic and ride and communicate with dragons. Oh wait, wrong movie.
No.
Wrong,
it's just
wrong
a
movie.
triangle
and it's
representing
on the outside
courage.
of his,
Oh.
and not the inside of his palm. So,
Oh, okay.
as it would be in Aragon. So different parts of the hand. But yeah, it's almost like a tattoo thing that marks him as someone the Outsider has chosen. So he can no longer really hide the fact that he has these, but he goes on various missions after that using his supernatural powers and achieving, taking out various political enemies to the Caldwins coming back into power along the way.
Hmm.
And he does this by whatever means you as the player decide. So if you want to be a righteous, non-lethal person, you don't kill anyone and have to piece together how exactly you can do it.
Gotta
Because it's not
sneak
like super
around.
apparent. It's not very plain,
Hmm.
the non-lethal solutions. Obviously, the lethal solutions is you run and gun and stab and dodge and duck and dive and dodge and stab. So it's like very straightforward what you do in that style of playthrough.
Sure.
But not so much as a non-lethal.
If you
So
want
gotta-
more of a challenge, do the stealthy option.
It's almost as if they're trying to say something about
About.
doing the hard right thing. But we'll get into that.
Mm-hmm.
And so eventually Corvo's betrayed by the Loyalists, who one of the leaders sold him out because he's like, this guy's offering me lots of money. I'm gonna turn you in now. Okay. But the guy assigned to give him the dose of poison to kill him, did you poison?
That line
Gives him-
was immediately in my head.
Samuel, I agree, Samuel. Gives him a non-lethal dose of poison so that he does not, in fact, die. He says, thank you, Samuel. You have saved me. Except he doesn't say anything because he's a silent protagonist. So Corvo escapes, but eventually, shortly after, is captured by the assassin Daud. D-A-U-D. Who is the one whose crew assassinated the Empress.
Okay.
So he gets captured, but he gets in a fight with Daud and wins and escapes and goes back to the pub, which was the home base of the Loyalists, but finds out everyone is dead,
Oh.
which is sad.
Hollow
Because
victories.
now he's got no more friends. And he likes having friends.
Friends are nice.
Likes having a place to stay and all of that.
I like the pub.
I like the pub. And so you go, at this point, you're like, okay, I think I've done enough that I can get at the Lord Regent now. So you do. And depending on how you have played up to this point, the game ends differently. So, if you have the optimistic, the Empire is restored to order, and Corvo sort of helps out running the country as Emily grows old enough, because she's, like 7.
Mm-hmm.
Not capable of ruling a country at this point. So, and if you don't, then there's lots of vengeance and continued blood and
More
well, Mm,
violence begetting more violence.
than that. Yes.
Oh.
Oh.
Wow.
All of which is retconned by the time you get to Dishonored 2.
Sure,
where
there's
you
only
once
one
again
ending.
have the ability to decide how
See,
that
that's
pans
the
out.
that's the trick with games with different possible endings that have sequels, is that they have to pick one to go with.
Or they have to pick a different completely set of characters and be more of a spiritual gameplay sequel than a story sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, this you sort of kind of can see how you could spin it such that whichever ending you picked, if you keep it the same between both games, you can kind of make yourself think that whatever you did in the first game is happening now or happened. So, but well, let's just talk about that. So, Dishonored 2 takes place 15 years later. Emily has assumed the throne and is ruling Dunwall, when all of a sudden a woman storms into her throne room, says that, my name's Delilah Caldwin, your long-lost aunt, and you're clearly mismanaging the throne here. The crown killer is, rampantly running around murdering your political enemies, and I'm not going to stand for that. Which is true. The crown killer has been running around killing Emily's political enemies, but Emily sees this as a problem because she didn't tell said crown killer to.
Right.
So she and Corvo are concerned about that and need to do something, but Delilah comes in and says, I'm taking over the country. And so from this point, you actually get to choose whether you play as Emily or as Corvo.
Ooh, multiple playable characters. Do they have
Yes.
different strengths and weaknesses, or
They
do they
have
play
different-
exactly the same?
They have different supernatural powers.
Ooh.
They have the same core skills from the first game, but then they have some other powers that differ.
Neat.
So your
replay value.
Your far reach and see through walls abilities are constant for both, but they operate a little differently too.
And do they reflect the
Emily's-
different play styles in different ways, or
Emily's far reach has more of a curve to it, so you can reach over things, like over the top of a lip or something.
Huh.
Whereas Corvo's is more of a straight line.
And do they both have the pacifist killer endings? Depending
They
on
do have the possibility of doing either.
Okay. And it's like the ending is the same between, or the two respective endings are the same based on who you pick, or does the story
Yes,
change? Okay.
more or less.
More or less. Got it.
Because the character you choose not to pick is petrified by Delilah, and you get to be the one that goes and circuitously rescues said frozen person.
Sure. All that changes is who's frozen.
Yeah. And there is a little bit more of the point of view of the player, and the cutscenes and how things shake out do change a little bit more in Dishonored 2.
Sure.
So as you choose non-lethal ways of dealing with things, Emily will start to realize that things aren't super great in her empire in lots of places, and start to develop some sympathy and some compassion, having spent 8 missions in the dumpsters of her society, and starting to realize that she should do something about it, being someone who's in a position of power.
And she isn't a silent protagonist.
No,
So she
she's
has
not.
room for this kind of
I don't actually
arc.
know if Corvo is, because I didn't play Corvo in my playthrough
okay.
for Dishonored 2. I imagine that he's not,
just to keep that continuity up?
to keep it consistent between the two. But I could see them keeping that up. I mean, he does talk in some of the initial cutscenes.
Oh, okay.
So they haven't decided to maintain that in its entirety from the first game. But it follows an exceedingly similar format, gameplay-wise. 9 missions of taking out political enemies of the person you're trying to depose. But there's a little bit of a spin on Dishonored 2.
Oh.
Because Delilah is, functionally invincible. She can't be killed by regular means. So you have to investigate why that is and how that came to be and what you can do about it. So you find out that Delilah has also been to the void and thus has the,
Outsider
supernatural
mark?
powers. She does not actually have an outsider mark.
Oh, okay. Does
Because the
Delilah
outsider-
have a... No,
No, Emily does,
Emily, I
but
should
Delilah does not.
Okay.
If you choose to play Emily, that is.
Okay.
She receives the mark from the outsider.
Okay, that's why she has the powers and stuff.
Yeah, that's the only way you can get them. But
Right.
Delilah doesn't. So we find out over the course of the game that Delilah was... her real name is Delilah Copperspoon, and she was one of the bastard children of the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
So she was Emily's half-sister, and her mother was kind of poorly treated and always a second-class citizen to Emily.
Mm-hmm.
And so Emily, of course, didn't really know about her because she was something they wanted to keep on the down low.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that built up resentment in Delilah, and she experimented with occult powers
And cutting hair and that type of thing.
yeah. Mhm.
She go to New York City? What was it like over there? Because I'm just in the bathroom getting higher than the Empire State or whatever.
Did it take her 3 years to get done with school, or anyway?
I don't know all the lyrics to that song, actually.
Me either. I only know like the parody. But
Anyway,
Point is-
I totally lost my train of thought. Been too busy
we're-
thinking about the plain white tees. What was I
aren't
saying?
we all though? That band from the mid 2000s.
There's one.
Delilah is experimenting with supernatural occult powers.
Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah.
To exact revenge on Emily for kind of being the object of her resentment of her life in general.
Mm-hmm.
So you work your way through all of Delilah's allies and figure out how to stop her, which is to recover her actual corporeal body, which she has left behind
Oh.
in the mansion of a generally nice guy that was sort of coerced into helping out Delilah, even though he
So
had some major reservations about her.
so that's why she's functionally invincible, because that's not her real.
It's not her
corporeal
real body, and you have to restore her soul to that body because she separated the two.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't kill her unless you destroy her, return her soul to her body, such that you can destroy the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
in Voldemort-esque fashion. So you do that, and the ending, of course, changes depending on whether you decide to be non-lethal or of a more lethal persuasion.
How does it change?
You either murder Delilah and rule as a tyrant, more or less, or you imprison Delilah in her own dream world that she created. She has this power to turn things she paints into real worlds. Not real worlds.
Mario
but
64.
Go Mario 64.
A half-breed Priscilla.
And so if she had her occult powers, she could flip the realities so that the painted reality where she was the queen and ruler of everything flips into real life so that she becomes actually, in truth, the ruler of everything. But when you cut off her connection to the void, you have the ability to trap her in that painting so she can't flip realities.
Mm-hmm.
And so you delude her into thinking that she's won and choose not to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the plot.
That's basically what goes on.
And does that change if you play as Corvo or not really?
I actually don't know. I didn't quite have enough time to research that.
I imagine it probably goes about the same.
There's probably some similarities.
Maybe the dialogue and the cutscenes are different, but it's like,
Mm-hmm.
why go through all the extra effort to make a completely different
Because,
ending.
I mean, certainly the cutscenes will be different. Because Corvo sort of grew up in the poor, in the slums, so he knows that experience. He doesn't need to discover
I was born
it.
in it.
Molded by
it. So yeah, he doesn't really need to have his eyes opened to that in the same way that Emily does.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to see how his cutscenes shake out.
Sure.
But it might warrant another playthrough someday.
And I feel
both of them are relatively short games. If you suck, you can finish each of them in about 15 hours.
sure.
Okay.
And I feel like as short as they are, they sound like the kind of game that would warrant a replay. Because
they're expressly designed to be replayed.
Right, because you've got multiple endings and various ways
You're
to solve
intended
the
to play through a low chaos and a high chaos. So you're supposed to get 30 hours out of each.
You could
That's why
play
they're so
4
short.
runs with the 2 characters in the second one too. So
And there's another axis. There's like the stealth and the violence. So you can do high stealth, high violence, where you're ghostly violent.
oh sure.
Or you could do, full detection, full violence, or full non-violence, full stealth, or full detection, non-lethal.
So you just run through.
So you just run through and use many different means at your disposal to deal with people.
So just like it encourages that kind of experimentation with the levels and the
Yeah.
that's fun.
The detected non-lethal run is really weird. Like, you have tools to do it, but it just kind of... It doesn't scratch the itch in the way that any of the other ones do.
And I doubt it was intentional.
No. I mean...
That seems like a speedrunner sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's neat that it's flexible enough to
allow you to do that if you wanted.
right.
So, interesting things about this game. It actually is a remarkably star-studded voice cast
Oh yeah.
of, like, not just recognizable voice actors, but, like, recognizable real actors.
And like because voice acting isn't real acting.
The vast majority of people that aren't me don't know the names of voice
Right.
actors. But, Carrie Fisher was one of the loudspeaker voices in Dishonored 1.
Oh, neat.
And this game came out in 2010. So this isn't even like, before Carrie Fisher was anyone. I mean, this was, like, big time Carrie Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
Lena Headey was one of the ladies that were one of the loyalists, who you might know as Cersei from Game of Thrones.
Okay. I don't.
Yeah, me neither.
Michael Madsen played the assassin Daoud, and he played the assassin Bud in Kill Bill.
Oh, that's funny.
So they kept his 4-letter name.
He was
that ends with a D,
typecast.
and his role as an assassin. And Chloe Grace Moretz was young Emily, who you might know as the 2013 Carrie.
I don't know that actually.
That's a horror movie. I haven't seen it. It's
Oh.
Like the Stephen King book that they turned
Yeah.
into a movie. Carrie.
Now,
That's her.
Did you know you can't hold that book in your inside pocket without a license?
Mm-hmm.
You need
need a license.
You need a concealed carry.
Anyway.
Other
The
cool
storylines are, it's a relatively story light game.
Right.
It really does focus on the gameplay. You spend very little time doing plot dumps. It's very, very gameplay focused.
Sure, level cutscene sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just get like some briefings about what you're gonna do and why you're gonna do it.
Yeah, it's like, hey, here's a level that I know already that you want to stealth and or shoot through, but here's the target. Here's why.
Yeah.
Go.
It's just giving you a reason to go.
Which, if you're playing the game, you don't need much.
Yeah. Each game kind of has its strengths and its weaknesses gameplay-wise.
Sure.
Dishonored 1, I personally liked a little bit more, which is weird because, I mean, Dishonored 2 is great, but most people, especially critics, prefer Dishonored 2. I felt that, I don't know, I think Emily's arc is pretty weak. I don't know about Corvo because I haven't done that playthrough. But, you know, his motivation in Dishonored 1 is pretty clear, and there's very clear reasons for him to be angry. Okay, so a very important detail that I haven't explained. Emily is actually Corvo's daughter.
Oh.
Which is something they also like to keep on the down low until, you know, Dishonored 2 rolls around, where pretty much everybody knows. But,
okay.
Yeah. So he's just the bodyguard, but he's really Emily's mother. Emily's father. Yeah, that not quite that. Not quite that.
No,
Not quite.
So he has a vested interest, and he has a legitimate reason to be furious and want to go on cold-blooded rampages 9 consecutive times. Whereas I feel that's not really the case for Emily in Dishonored 2.
Sure.
She's just kind of vaguely defending her throne.
Yeah. So she's like, there's no strategic reason for her to go on a murderous rampage 9 consecutive times. There's a reason for Corvo too. I mean, there's a little bit of that. Corvo is imprisoned in stone and she would want to get him back, but that's never expressed at any point in her cutscenes, in her dialogue, and anything.
Maybe it'd be more of a focus if you went the Corvo route. I don't know.
I assume it would be. You know, it's just like, you know, a Taken 2 scenario. It was like, this again. All right, if you want me to go and kill you all again, I will.
I guess.
Apparently you didn't learn your lesson last time. So I feel that Corvo's arc is.
I will find you and I will kill
stronger.
you, or I'll sneak around you.
I know where you live. You're literally living where I used to live until you took me out of that place. So I will find you. I don't even have to find you. I know where you are. Audibly talking on the phone.
As they have in,
audibly talking on a hand phone.
As they have in Whalepunk, England.
Whalepunk, England.
Whalepunk. We're making it a thing. Instead of everything being made out of copper and steam engines, it's all whale.
Whale. Yeah. Dishonored 2, I would say, is much more appealing visually.
Well,
but
it came out later, so they had more time to get
6
good.
years later, you know. The graphics
Same console,
are really
or is it like...
It's on consoles, for sure.
Would it have been like Xbox 360 versus Xbox One?
Xbox One.
Or are they both...
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there would have been a generational jump between the two.
Yep.
That would make sense.
Kind of a similar deal, I suppose, because I recently played the first 2 Arkham games. The first one...
Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, Arkham Asylum.
It's a pretty discreet, close experience. It's not very long.
And the second one, if you're just doing the story, it didn't take very long either.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of like the shift in graphics and stuff, it came to my mind.
Yeah.
Because I only just finished Arkham City last night. But anyway,
we'll have
side note.
Different episode, different time.
Different day.
I felt the level design in Dishonored 1 was a lot more compelling and interesting.
Oh, yeah?
Because the non-lethal options were much more difficult to discern.
Sure.
It was harder to, you could deal with the run-of-the-mill guards just as easily in both games. But, like, figuring out how to non-lethally deal with the, the kingpin enemy of the level, the important person, was considerably harder and required, not harder, like, execution-wise, but like just
in terms of figuring out
how.
what the puzzle is and how to execute on it?
Yeah. There was one level in Dishonored 2 that was fabulous in that regard, and the rest of them sucked. I
okay.
hated that level's guts because it was so hard. It made me quit the game the first time I attempted it. But it was really satisfying. Because just like, one of the things they did was they introduced a new mechanical enemy. So all of your tools do not work on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Most of your tools revolve around like stealthy movement and being able to sneak up behind things and like choke them out, knock them unconscious. None of which is possible with these robots because first and foremost,
Robots don't breathe.
Robots don't breathe, so you can't choke them out. Secondly, they have eyes literally in the back of their heads. They've got a camera forward and backward facing. So even if you could, you still couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Whalepunk robots are tough nuts to crack.
They are
apparently.
whale oil robots. So if you can manage to stun them and yank out their whale oil tank, then you can deal with them.
Okay.
But otherwise, you just have to evade them. So they're very frustrating, but great. Amazing from a gameplay perspective.
I think that's like the best kind of hard, where it is a little bit frustrating, or very frustrating even.
Because it forces you to break out of the habits you've built up over the course of the game.
Right. It makes you interact with the systems a little differently.
And it's the second level in the game.
Oh, so that's fairly early on.
It's very early on, and nothing else even close to measures up to the difficulty and intrigue of that level.
Huh.
And getting to the boss in that level, he has like 2 patrolling clockwork soldiers in this circular balcony.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so hard to time the soldiers and like get into their blind spot in time to take him out and get him out of there before they notice that he's not there anymore. It's just such a tight execution window. And it was, it was very satisfying when I did it, but that was kind of the case for most of Dishonored 1, and 2 did not deliver that, in my opinion. The levels themselves, like on the whole, were a lot more interesting, I think, because they had a lot more variance and thematic ways of dealing with, getting from the start of the level to the boss and all of that.
Sure.
They were a lot more diverse in their scenery and enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dishonored 1 was just kind of, guards, and more guards. But Dishonored 2 introduced, different enemy types and with different power sets and things they could do.
And I imagine setting them in different buildings and kinds of buildings.
Setting them together in ways such that blind spots were covered, and so you had to get creative on how to deal with that.
Just in general, good level design practices.
Mm-hmm.
Variety.
There are supernatural powers that you deal with those things, but
Sure.
Yeah.
Fun.
Fascinating.
That has...
On the whole, they're just great gameplay games. The stories are pretty light, but still interesting.
And they have enough that's like interesting to think about and talk about in terms of their theming and such.
Mm-hmm.
Those games have officially gone from games I've known about but like have no interest in to games that are on my list now. So, gonna have to try them at some point.
With that, shall we get into our transcendentals?
Yeah, I think it would be a good time for that.
Right there.
So, truth. What are some truths we can find in the Dishonored games?
Family.
Emily.
Family. Nothing's more powerful than family.
Vin Diesel strolls in.
Yeah. The family's a huge point of truth in this game, and it's especially from Corvo's point of view, is like, his family is his whole life. Everything he does is to take care of his family, and he fails at that repeatedly,
which is what dishonors him.
But it's something that he values very highly.
Mm-hmm.
And, Emily receives some of that, but, in this game, she's still quite young. Not necessarily naive, but she just lacks the experience of her whole life, as Corvo does.
And the second one, it seems like the family theming has gone double because now you've got a family-themed villain that kind of almost reflects Corvo.
In a certain way, kind of what Corvo could have been were he not who he is.
Honorable.
Terrible. I mean, Corvo still can be terrible.
He can
if
be.
you want him to be. But
the game makes it a point to say that being terrible is not a good thing.
it does. It does do that.
Which, there's another
Actions
piece of
have
truth.
consequences.
The other
Being
piece of
bad
truth is being bad is bad. Who'd have
Particularly when your whale oil empire depends on your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
thought? Yes.
Whalepunk be a rough life. It ain't much, but it's Whalepunk.
Are we ever going to let this Whalepunk thing?
It'll be the title, I guarantee it.
It's going to work its way in there for sure. Whalepunk England.
Something
Yeah,
like that.
something along those lines.
Um,
Whalepunk Wakanda.
Being aware of with the great power comes great responsibility thing.
Because there's
Dishonored too.
like consequences to your actions beyond what is immediately apparent.
When will you learn? Your actions have consequences.
And you have been gifted powers by the outsider to
What's the
do
outsider's
your,
deal?
do your goal.
You just kind
The
of
outsider. We get into. He tells us a little bit about himself in Dishonored too, but he mainly exists to be an enigmatic distributor of powers who exposes your weaknesses to you so that you can deal with them. He doesn't do that expressly so that you can deal with them. He just likes to, poke holes in you, and what you do with that depends on your outlook.
do with
Right.
this but what you will, but puce ain't a great color on you.
He's
son.
just like, I'm here to alert you to the fact that you suck. And what you choose to do with that is your own business.
Because
Get behind
basically,
me, Socrates.
a hero's origin story and a villain's origin story is the difference is one decision of difference. It's the decision to like rise above your bad situation or let it consume you and be the
Whether
bad.
you wake up and choose violence or choose sneaky.
Choose sneaky.
Choose the sneaky.
It's the right thing to do.
Goodness, what is good in the Dishonored games?
Family.
Family.
Yeah. It is, on the whole...
Does Emily ever
Not.
become aware that Corvo's her father?
Oh, yeah, she knows.
Reveal
She's
at the
always
end
known.
of the first game, or like does she know?
I
going
think
into
she's
the
more or
first
less always known.
game? Okay.
Gotcha.
But, no, she's, astute enough to not go blabbing it from the mountaintops.
Very sensible.
And, there's not a lot of goodness. It's a dystopian society in both games, and even without the introduction of these more chaos-inducing factors, things were not going great in the first place. With a plague and, mismanagement of resources and all these things.
Particularly not
So-
good for the whales.
No.
Yeah.
No.
No, it's made pretty clear that the whales are being overhunted and we're running out of whale.
Ah.
We're
To
losing
power
whales
our
fast.
society. We're losing whales fast.
Dory has no one to talk to anymore.
No, it's a pretty bleak atmosphere to point out, the bleakness of the human condition.
But at the same time,
To give you an
Corvo
opportunity
can
to respond
have
to
that choice to not give in to the bleak dystopianness of it and do something a little more noble than not.
I suppose you could draw like a sort of parallel to this society is sort of on like this Captain Ahab like bent where it's just so consumed by its whale obsession that it's slowly destroying itself. I don't know. A little bit of a stretch, but
Maybe a little bit of a stretch.
a sort of a vague theme thing. I guess that just sort of occurred to me. I'm really on a whale kick now. But whales don't. They flipper. They flipper all over.
Yeah.
Quit your blubbering and
flipper.
let's finish the episode.
Okay. Beauty. What is beautiful about the Dishonored games?
It is beautiful in its bleakness. Yeah, there is... Before the chaos ensues in Dishonored 2, no, the throne room is very, it looks nice. The visual detail, the artistic work that goes into the game is top notch. It's very well crafted. All of the human models are a little weak, but
I mean, if they're
you
highly
don't
realistic
spend much time
human
looking
models
at
from the
people's
mid-2000s.
faces. No, it's 2010 was
2010.
Dishonored 1.
Well-
But it's also almost an indie studio, so
Sure.
it's not quite an indie studio, but it's
like-
certainly not AAA until Bethesda comes and injects money in it.
Mm-hmm.
So the second game was where Bethesda
The
stepped
second game is very much AAA. Everything takes a visual step up there. The aesthetic designs in Dishonored 2 are a lot more varied and interesting, and it's not just universally bleak.
Sure.
But there are some, you go to the Royal Conservatory in one of the missions, and that has this lush green museum, nice botanical garden exterior, and the inside, as you delve deeper, descends into this dark, decaying, witch-infested place.
You
So
get different flavors of bleak.
you get different flavors of bleak, masked and masqueraded and facaded by very nice-looking things.
What is with dystopian games and plant-themed areas?
There's only one plant-themed area.
I feel like games in general like plant-themed areas because
I
it's an
guess.
easy theme to design around.
Well, because I'm thinking there's the whole botanical gardens in BioShock, and then there's in the Arkham game.
And then, there's Poison Ivy. In
Well,
the
Arkham game
games,
makes
and there's-
sense from Poison Ivy.
Right.
I mean, the forest jungle plant level is just a trope in video games because it's like, hey, we want to have the man-eating plants show up in one level at least.
Yeah. Anyway, just an observation, I guess.
They have some really great, talented, minstrel duos
Ooh,
in Dishonored 2.
just like some.
Well, the male singer is not great, but
Sure.
he's kind of a scratchy voice. But they have some really good tunes that I would just sit on a windowsill and listen to the song because it was just a good song. As they performed it for this guy I'm trying to take out.
It's lovely tune. All right, now to beat the crap out of this dude.
That's fun. This bit of diegetic music that gives the world a little more character. That he's just like, this is a world that has minstrels.
And there was
Yeah,
much
it was-
rejoicing.
And they're playing for Paolo, who is voiced by what's his face?
I don't
Why am
know.
I blanking? Pedro Pascal.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah.
they have
Mandalorian man.
they have minstrels playing whale oil instruments for their
Whalepunk Mandalorian.
Whalepunk Mandalorian.
Whale oil powered violins. They're not at all whale powered.
Make
No.
sure you oil up your violin real good. Unity, what draws everything together?
Dishonored.
Dishonor on
The
you.
idea of
Dishonor
being
on your whale
dishonored.
cow.
Dishonor on your whale. Yeah, no, but in all seriousness, the theme of Dishonored pervades the whole thing. And what do you do when your name is dragged through the mud?
Do you
How
lash
do you
out and
respond?
kill a lot of people, or do you sneak around and redeem
do you-
yourself?
Sneak around and redeem yourself. If you guys out there listening want to sneak around and redeem yourself, how can you do that? How can you do that, James?
Well, thanks for listening to the Palladium Papist. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Papist. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes, or observations about different types of whales, email us at palladiumpapist@gmail.com. You'll catch us again in the next episode, just like a poor helpless humpback in the North Pacific. We will talk to you guys again next week. Goodbye.
It's been a whale of a time.
See ya.
Well, I suppose we better wrap this up. Just like killed Moby Dick.